on today's episode of Everyday Life with Becca. Hello, my friends. So I mentioned a couple of times that I was going to do a video explaining why I have to do certain things in terms of physical things, and why so often I'm filming from my bed. So we'll start right at the beginning. When I was born, I had a curvature of the spine, which wasn't detected at first because the GP that my parents took me to said that it was a muscle on my back due to strain of birth, they said. But then, thankfully, there was a locum doctor, I think, that looked at my back and sent me straight up to the Nuffield Orthopaedic Hospital. And it was there that I was diagnosed with a severe scoliosis. I mean, it was so severe. Before my parents were really worried because my hair had started to fall out. And I was extremely tired all the time, very lethargic. If my mum and dad laid me on the floor on my back, I would make no attempt to get up at all. And the reason probably my hair was falling out is because my spine was getting so curved and my ribs were rotating so much that it was putting pressure on my heart and my lungs. So obviously my parents were terrified when they heard the name scoliosis. They didn't know what it was. It just ended in osis. And, there are other horrible things that end in osis. So I was put into a plaster cast at first, I think, to try and hold my spine. Because let's put it into context, I had a 60-degree curve and it was on the left-hand side of my body, which was pretty unusual. And also, my scoliosis was diagnosed as infantile idiopathic scoliosis. Idiopathic means there is no known cause. There is congenital scoliosis, which when the spine is forming in the womb, there might be a slight abnormality in one of the discs, in one of the vertebrae, and then the whole of the spine grows in a curved manner because of that. But mine was idiopathic, though there was no known cause for it. My spine just decided it was not going to play ball, it wasn't going to go straight, and it was going to curve. And when your spine curves, it then pulls your rib cage around with it, which mine did. So I was put into a plaster cast, and then I had to have a specially made leather brace, which I used to have to wear 23 hours a day, all the time, day and night. The 23 hours that I had an hour to do exercises and have a bath and things like that. But I had exercises to do when I was very little, in order to help increase my lung capacity. I had to blow cotton wool balls on through a straw. That was one of the things. But I don't remember much about that time, obviously. I was too young. But my mum and dad remember that well, that it was pretty horrendous watching their baby being forced into these braces, and you know, I probably screamed and cried a fair bit. But as I started to get older, because I'd never known anything different, my brace just became part of me. The brace that I was put in was called a Milwaukee brace, and it had a bar that came right up the front and a chin piece and then a headpiece at the back. So it made me stand out quite a lot as a kid, you know. So the aim was then keeping me in a brace, the brace would push against the curve. So I was in different braces all of my adolescence, childhood, adolescence. And then when I was 19 and I'd technically finished all my growth spurts, they decided that it would be a good idea for me to not wear the brace anymore. And that was that kind of thing. And that's really where my problems started, because my spine was never going to play ball. So as soon as that brace was off, it started to shift and move again, which caused me tremendous pain. And then when I was about 22 years old, my surgeon at the Nuffield Orthopaedic decided that in order to stabilize it and stop some of the pain that I was having, that it would be beneficial for me to have a spinal fusion. Now, Mr. Fairbanks told me that it was going to knock me sideways, but I had no fucking idea just exactly what that meant. I should have had an intensive care bed, but there weren't any. So after my surgery, I was taken to the trauma ward. The trauma ward is where road traffic accidents come, people that have been smashed up in car accidents, bike accidents. So they were taken by ambulance, obviously, straight to the hospital, operated on or whatever, and then they were taken to the trauma ward. Well, that's where I woke up after my surgery. And I've got to tell you, the pain, I've never felt anything like it in my life. But also, when the surgeon was doing my spinal fusion, because I'd been held in a brace for all of my adolescent and beginning of my adult life, my spine had actually naturally fused together in different areas. So it was impossible for him to get correction, because the idea of surgery is that they can correct your spine, make it straighter. They couldn't do that with me. So the surgery involves they need some bone for the bone grafts that they do, and my bone was taken. I had a rib removed, and then what they do is they remove the discs that weren't fused in my spine. They remove the soft disc from the middle, and then they pack the ground up rib into those vacant spaces, and that will grow together and form a solid space where the soft disc was. So I've got a big scar from under my boob right the way down to the bottom of my hip on my right side. when I woke up, or barely woke up, I was in so much tremendous pain. I would have happily died at that point, which brings me to the point where I almost did. So on this trauma ward, I was given morphine for the pain, but what the morphine was doing was making me so out of it. It wasn't killing the pain. I was still aware of everything that was going on around me. I just couldn't articulate or speak or even open my eyes barely. I should have been up the next day after my surgery. That's what they do. They get you up and they get you walking around. They didn't do that with me because I was just so out of it. So I laid on the trauma ward for about 3 or 4 days, I think, barely conscious. And my mum and dad were freaking out, obviously. I'd got a extremely high temperature that they couldn't get down. And they were told it really didn't look good. So after 3 or 4 days, they decided that they were taking me off of the trauma ward and sending me to the Nuffield Orthopaedic for the rest of my recuperation and care. And my mum and dad said that they thought it was best if I wasn't on the morphine, and they said, well, she's going to be in pain. And I think my mum said, well, good, it might wake her up because she's unconscious, barely moving, she can't speak, she's not eating, she's on a drip for fluids. So that's what they did. They withdrew the morphine. And I still had this rocketing temperature that they couldn't get down. And again, that they were told it really didn't look good, because when you've sustained a temperature for a period of like 3 or 4 days that you can't get down, what happens is, your body, in order to compensate, it starts to shut down organs. So your body doesn't have to work so hard in order to lower your temperature. But anyway, it took a little while for the morphine to get out of my system, and I started to wake up, but the pain was just tremendous. So I was given oral tablets, which really helped. And then I was discharged from the Nuffield Orthopaedic after, I think it was about a week. And I was put into a plaster cast before I left the Nuffield, which was pretty horrendous. I had a shower, and one of the nurses, it was a male nurse, I'll never forget him, called Michael. When he took me into the shower, and I sat on this like seat in the shower, and he said, do you want to see what's been done? And I could see looking down at myself, that I was black. And he got this mirror and showed me my back, and I could see what they'd done. And I was literally, from my chest here down to my tops of my legs, was black. So after my shower, I then went to the plaster room, as they call it, and I was put in a plaster cast. So they wrap you in felt, thick felt, and then they put plaster bandages all the way around. Well, I can't tell you, I mean, nothing that how I describe this is going to be as accurate as what I felt. But being pushed and shoved into that plaster cast as they wrapped those bandages and moulded it round, my bruised body was just, it was just like a nightmare. Anyway, so moving forward, that really did take my body through the mill. It really did. So kind of just glossing over that next part, the recuperation, which took such a long time. Eventually I went back to work, and I really shouldn't have, because I wasn't ready to do that. And then skipping forward a few more years, just struggling like I always had done. I didn't recover really, I don't think, from the surgery. I don't think I ever recovered from it. And about 10 years later, because I was so fatigued and because my muscles were in so much pain, my doctor, who was in somewhere, another place where I was living, thought that I might have ME, chronic fatigue syndrome. So I was up to the hospital again, to the specialist chronic fatigue clinic, and I was officially diagnosed. One of the triggers for chronic fatigue syndrome is extreme stress or surgery or something traumatic in the body. So I was officially diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And then a few years after that, I contracted something called sarcoidosis, which is an inflammatory condition. Big nodules come up on my shin of my leg, which was, the pain was like nothing on earth. I did recover from that, but that again had a knock-on effect with my chronic fatigue syndrome. And it got to a point where I couldn't work. I could barely do anything. And my spine, although it was stabilized as much as they could, they have to leave some parts of your spine that are mobile. And some of that is the vertebrae here in the top of my neck. Well, my scoliosis is best described as if you hold a snake tightly with both hands in one direction, you try and hold it straight. What it's going to do, it's going to twist in order to move past that restraint. And that's exactly what my spine did. It's like got a mind of its own, and it thought to itself, right, I can't move this way anymore, so I'm going to move outwards. So I developed something called a kyphosis. Same as scoliosis, but kyphosis goes outwards rather than curves that way. So it started to curve outwards at the top of my neck here, which is extremely painful, and just something else that makes me fatigued. And also my rib cage is still rotated. They couldn't correct that. So I've got all these things that have accumulated over the years, and this is the position that I'm left in now. There's nothing else that it can do for my spine. I've reached the end of the road a long time ago with that, because everything that was done could be done. And I still have chronic fatigue syndrome, and my spine causes me fatigue also. So come about excuse me, about 5 o'clock in the evening. It takes a lot for me to try and hold myself up during the day in order to function. I have to actively try and push myself upright in order to function, to walk around, to do things that I need to do. But that is so tiring, fighting against your own spine, fighting against your own body to stay upright in that position and not just flop over in the direction that my spine is curved, because I really don't want to do that. But a consequence of that is it gets to about 5 or 6 o'clock and I can't battle it anymore. So the only way that I cope with it is to get into bed, have my pillow up behind me like this, and just relax. I mean, probably some of you will say, well, you could film videos earlier in the day, and I have done that on occasions, but this is my time in the morning times, is my busiest times with the dogs and everything. So I have a lot on my hands to cope with at the beginning part of the day. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what time it is now. Let me check on my phone. It's 19:29, so 7:30. And I take, oh, yes. So all from my 20s onwards, I was treated for depression, or what I thought was depression. And I never seemed to pull out of it. And then about 2 years ago, my doctor referred me to another doctor, and I saw him over a period of 6 months and talked to him about my mental health, blah, blah, blah. And he, at the end of this 6 months, he said to me that you don't have depression. He said, I'm fairly sure that you have bipolar disorder. And started me on, took me off of the antidepressants that I was on and put me on medications specifically for bipolar. And that totally changed my life. I'd struggled for all those years because I was not diagnosed properly and didn't have the right medication. So that was a huge bonus for me to get that diagnosis, because it was a huge difference. And although I do have mostly really severe downtimes, they are nothing like they were before. So physically and mentally, I've had everything but the kitchen sink thrown at me. You name it, you know, anything that I could possibly have that would work against me physically, I've had and still have. So now my pain is managed by, let me see if I can show you this. This is all my stuff that I take in the evening time. I've got, I don't know if you can see over there, this drawer here is full of medication that I take for pain, and I take tablets for to block nerve pain, because I get a lot of nerve pain from the base of my spine, which is still mobile, but it's got a lot of pressure on it. So I get a lot of sciatica that runs down your legs, and which is tremendously painful too. So I've got a huge amount of medication that get me through the day and allow me to function normally. So yeah, I thought it would be a good idea just for me to tell you, just, you know, and I don't want sympathy and I don't want all that, but I do talk about certain things at certain times. So I know a lot of you know that I've got a spinal problem, but yeah, so that's why I film mostly from my bed, because it's quiet in the evening, the dogs are quiet, I can settle down and I can just sit happily and chat to you. So this is my everyday life. Yes, it's restricted in a lot of ways, but I do still have a productive life. I am more than all the elements that go up that make my body. You know, I might have to battle my body, but I do it every day because I have to. But there's a lot doesn't stop me enjoying anything, and that's why I changed the name of my channel, because I wanted just to reflect that this is how I live, this is my everyday, and I know there's so many more people out there that either make YouTube content or watch YouTube content that struggle with major health problems. And I wanted to be an encouragement to any of you that are watching. I just wanted to be an encouragement that there's a lot of us out here, either on that side of YouTube or this side of YouTube. I was watching a lady this afternoon that has multiple sclerosis, and she's got a YouTube channel, and she just talks about it, says how she feels, and she does it as an encouragement to other people that are watching. So I want to do that too. And even if you don't have a physical problem, you're struggling with your mental health, you're not on your own either that side of YouTube or this side of YouTube. There's an Australian guy that I watch, I can't remember his channel name. He is a recovering alcoholic, and his channel is about staying sober day by day, one day at a time, and he documents that on YouTube because he wants to bring awareness, one, but he also wants to be an encouragement to anybody else out there that may be going through the same thing. So that's what this video is about, but also so you are informed that when I say, oh, I'm in bed again, I don't have to then explain. I know that you all know, if you've watched, that I'm in bed because so now you know. But you all are such an encouragement to me, day in, day out on YouTube. Your kindness, your generosity, your helpfulness, your advice over different things, particularly like with Louis. Yeah, you're amazing, and that's why I wanted to share this with you. So thank you for sticking with me to the end, if you have done. Please try and remember to give my video a thumbs up, because it really helps my channel and helps other people. It helps my video maybe go further afield. So anyway, thank you for listening. everyone, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.